All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited about this one here this afternoon because on Sportswire Radio, we get to speak with another champion whose company has really caught our interest here over the past couple of weeks. And that is our friends over at Legendary Backyard Wrestling. They actually have a show right in a little while, maybe right when we're off the air. You're going to go over to their YouTube page, Legendary Backyard Wrestling, and our guest page also on YouTube. Tag him for it. And they've got a huge show here, and the champ's going to preview that, plus talk about his journey, which has led him to multiple championships, being a multiple-time world champion. It has also led him to so many wars with the likes of the Wilster and Chris Aruda, Nate Dogg most recently, J-Ro, plus who knows what's stored in here for the future for him. But he needs no further introduction. But because he is the champion and it's his first time on Sportswire Radio, he's going to get that famous introduction anyway. So with that, but further ado here on the Sports Report, number one, Global Sports Show, the legendary Backyard Wrestling Champion of the World, CJ the Alpha Jones. The champ is here.
Yes, sir.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, fair enough. We definitely appreciate that, and obviously looking forward to this one. It's been kind of one we've been kind of planning here for a while, and obviously our schedules. I have a little bit of a break in the day, and you're obviously here with us, so we appreciate those opportunities. So obviously, first of all, we got a big show coming up here in a little while. It's going to air actually probably in about a little less than 90 minutes now on the YouTube page for Legendary Backyard Wrestling. So, champ, set the tables for us and what we can expect from Legendary Backyard Wrestling episode 39, especially for everybody here on YouTube and elsewhere. Set the tables for us, champ.
Well, this is a big episode. This is our first show coming off of our most recent pay-per-view show, and also our collab show that we've done with Backyard Wrestling Nexus. And so there's a lot of backlash from both of those two big events. We have a newcomer coming onto the show with us, someone that I have personally selected to join us, and he will be right by my side. Some fans have seen a little bit from him from the last collab show, but as of now, you will be fully introduced to him come this show tonight. And we have tons of other shows, a couple matches for you guys. High stakes. It's crazy.
Well, especially after coming off Playground Mayhem, where you certainly showed you were definitely not playing around here in defending and upholding that championship here and against Nate Dogg. And I mean, what's that like, wrestling in the rain and almost like in a park setting and in a playground? I mean, I have to say, I mean, we've had a lot of wrestlers on Sportswire over the past 4.5 years, champ. But talk about that experience, because you certainly beat all the elements really to retain your title.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, you know, every time that you go through all these kinds of different season changes or weather changes, each has their own task or their own struggle, if you will, to how to perform correctly and so on. And so you just kind of gotta get in the feel. What we did when we went to go down to there and we filmed on site, we scouted the place, we checked it out, and then we just kind of just went in. We kind of didn't really plan anything. We didn't check anything out. We weren't really fully sure even if it was
I was like, first of all, because I'm from New York, and I was like, well, how did they kind of get it where nobody said, hey, what are you doing wrestling outside in the park? Because I know by me, I actually live near a park, and I would imagine if I would try to do something like that, I would probably either be arrested or shot. I don't know which one would come first, but you know, to pull that off and be able to have like nobody really look around and kind of eavesdrop, I mean, credit to you guys, I suppose.
Right. I mean, we've had a few altercations similar to that. We've actually had the cops called on us a couple times. But this particular time at Playground Mayhem, because it was raining, there wasn't really too many people walking around the park, so we kind of got away with that. But there's still some people walking around just kind of looking at us and what the hell are they doing? But we just kept going. We
Well,
had a good show.
so maybe I guess it was a good thing it actually rained because you wouldn't have had those different people and I guess the peanut gallery saying, "Hey, what's going on here?" So maybe it worked out to your advantage. And certainly, Nate Dogg gave you a run for your money, and he had won the Rumble to obviously get the title shot against you. And I have to ask you because obviously this will be a big part of the show here in a little while, which everybody can see on the Legendary Backyard Wrestling YouTube page. Have we seen the last of you and Nate Dogg?
I mean, you never really know here. I would like to think so because I don't know what more he could do. I really don't. I mean, he's a great talent and he works his ass off, but clearly he gave his all and he just couldn't get the job done. So
he tried. He definitely tried. I mean, he
yeah,
definitely had his moments there. I think he was kind of saying, "Well, what's going on?" Is saying to obviously our ref, our senior official here in LBYW, you might want to say, Ref Fajito, where's the 3 count? Where's the 3 count? And it didn't quite work to his advantage there. So I mean, he definitely, literally, if he could have threw everything in the kitchen sink against you, he would have did that. But still came up short. But he still has, I guess, a chance to get a crack at you. But I do have some comments, so let me say hello to some people.
sure.
I want to give a big shout out to my very good friends over at ROEW. ROEW, one of our favorite companies around here. ROEW TV has got a lot of great stuff out there. Another company very similar to LBYW that we love here. Excited for this one. CJ has a lot of heart and potential and is someone we wish lived closer so he could join us. Yeah, this is a company, by the way, and we have a couple of other companies here with us. I want to give them big shout outs in a second, but this is definitely a company, I think, with what you do in the ring, kind of the desire that the company has overall, that I think you guys would work great together. But unfortunately, you're a little bit further away than Michigan. You're in like North Dakota, which is sort of a little bit further, I guess, left than what would be our friends over at ROEW. But you do actually share somebody in common, which we'll get to later on in a little while. And please, everybody, follow our friends over at ROEW. They do a phenomenal job. We will have more ROEW coverage coming up here on Instagram, also on YouTube, ROEW Backyard Wrestling. Please give them a shout out.
Yes, sir.
A very good friend from WC Wrestling Championship Entertainment, Skulls the Soul Hunter. So if you ever need a Soul Hunter from California, Skulls is the guy. Skulls is making his debut July the 8th for WC. Go to WC Heat on YouTube and Facebook and their page as well. We'll have more coverage from later on. Omen Black, by the way, Omen's my guest Friday night. He'll be in your chair. He's going to be at Rage in the Cage, a big war going on between DKW and IMF. He's going to talk about that. He's also going to talk about defending his championship. We just saw an announcement on the DKW page, Dark Cryptic Wrestling, about that. So we'll talk with Omen probably a little bit after about 10 p.m. Eastern time. So excited to have Omen as well here with us. Also, somebody you know very well, but you haven't met him, but you know him well. That is the Anarchist Gunshot, who says, I can't wait to finally make my debut in LBYW. And I've seen him on LBYW TV, sort of. We've seen him with Chris Aruda kind of go back and forth. But, I mean, you want to say anything to the Anarchist Gunshot? Because I have a feeling that he's going to come on Sportswire as well here in the future. So anything you want to say here to the Anarchist Gunshot?
One thing I can say is that if he ever does make it up here, we all look forward to it. I know when the Wilster was in charge, he's actually the one who signed him to the contract, and as of this moment, his contract still hasn't expired, so he does have the opportunity to still come up here. So if he does eventually make it up here, that'd be great.
Well, we'll certainly definitely have to find out here. We're going to have him on. In fact, I'll have an announcement maybe later on the show on the date that the Anarchist Gunshot here comes on. And speaking of somebody I'm going to get to in a little while, is I guess your newest accomplice, Mr. Napalm himself. Give Napalm a big shout out. He is here and ready to destroy. So you know what? Maybe let's go with that, because I'll talk about your journey in a second. I'll talk about some of the more recent title defenses and where you are right now in LBYW. But Napalm has obviously come in here. He's poised and primed to certainly make a big splash. And tell our audience what we might expect from Napalm, especially, I'm sure, on tonight's show and future shows coming up here in LBYW to make sure you remain the LBYW champion.
Well, Napalm, I'm very excited for him. He is someone that I scouted for, and I found him, and he is someone extremely dedicated to doing this with us. And like I said, everyone got a little bit of a taste of what napalm is to come at BYWN Heart of Glory with he captured the 24/7 title. So that was a cool little whatever. But he actually will be on tonight. He has his debut match tonight. And I actually, kind of somewhat breaking news, his first opponent will be Ragnarok, who is an LWW original.
Yep.
So Napalm will be in action tonight. I, of course, will be right there by his side, and you will not want to miss what this man is capable of doing. I'm excited for everyone to meet him.
Oh, I know.
Amazing.
I know what my plans are later this evening. That is watching Legendary Backyard Wrestling's newest show, LBYW 39. Add that on the bucket list for more shows to watch here on Sportswire. I think, Champ, the running joke is at this point, people ask me, they say, oh, what do you watch these days? What are you watching? And I honestly say, well, I'm watching wrestling. I mean, they say, what's in your wardrobe? I'm wearing wrestling shirts, and probably LBYW shirt is probably next on the bucket list to wear. So, I mean, at this point, my life is literally a walking wrestling match. But I want to give a shout out actually also to, speaking of champions, and I can't believe I'm saying he's a champion. He'll be in your chair Thursday night, maybe around 11 p.m. Eastern time. That is Nicholas Crenson. And the Psycho Wolf himself is now the brand new RCW Rules Champion from WC's Wrestling Championship Entertainment. And Mr. Crenson's going to talk about it. I'm going to have a chance to watch his match later this evening. So we will certainly speak with the champion. He won his first championship in over 17 years. I mean, the last time this guy was a champion, George Bush was president. The last time he was president, I believe the World Series champions that year were the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, the Super Bowl champions were the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, this is how far back the last time that this guy was a champion. He's going to talk about it. I almost can't believe it's even happening. We've had this guy on here on and off for about a year, and we'll talk with the new champion tomorrow night live here in your chair. And Skulls says here, might be a future idea for Skulls to come in LBYW. So I have to ask you this question. I mean, are you guys accepting talent from different places, different states? I mean, is that something you guys look for actively, is to try to find new talent? I know you're not the owner of the company, but do you think LBYW, looks for new talent out there, the biggest and brightest?
As far as I know, and at least according to me, we accept anyone. If anyone wants to come up here and they want to test their might here in LBOW, go for it. Especially, and I actually very much encourage this, if you think you have what it takes, come up here to the frozen tundra in the wintertime and show us what you got. I encourage it. So if anyone ever wants to come up here, I'm all for it.
All right. Well, you know what? I definitely would love to see that. And I'll get to some more comments here. I definitely have some more comments here in a second. And I want to thank everybody that's still with us on YouTube. But, I mean, I find it fascinating. You guys wrestle in all these elements, right? Now, there are other companies that when the weather turns, let's say in October, or maybe if you're lucky, late October, that's it. Seasons are done, and you basically can't resume until it hits, I guess, above 50 degrees, which is usually, I guess, depending where you are, maybe April, maybe middle of April. That's where you can safely go out there and wrestle. And I understand it takes a lot to be able to set up a ring and to be able to have an event and a show and talent and such and other reasons. But you guys pretty much do it no matter what, especially in North Dakota. Now, I'm in New York, right? And we complain in New York when we get like 1 inch of snow and it's like 30 degrees. You guys, I mean, that's like summer for you guys. So for those that are listening and watching, Champ, I mean, how do you guys pull off wrestling in all these elements?
We just go ham, man. If we're determined to get even the slightest bit of content out for our fans and even just for our likings, we go for it, man. If there's 5 feet of snow outside or there's 3 feet of water outside from raining all day long, doesn't matter. We will go out there and we will perform and do what we got to do what we do best.
Okay, well, you definitely do that here. And if you are out there on Instagram, please follow our friends over at Legendary Backyard Wrestling at ND_backyard_wrestling. Please support them. Also support our very good friend, the champion himself, CJ_Jundt 99. Make sure you follow him and make sure you follow all the great things that they are doing here at Legendary Backyard Wrestling. And I do have some more comments here. Nicholas Cranston, who, by the way, we mentioned obviously just before, CJ kind of reminds me of a Wisconsin BYW legend from the 90s/2000s, the Messiah of backyard wrestling, Psycho Rob, and yes, the new Messiah moniker I use as a homage to him. So I guess that's a pretty cool for you being compared to
Thank you.
backyard wrestlers here. But let me come on here to Mr. Omen Black, another champion, the IMF champion of the world. Please follow our friends over at the IMF at IMF_wrestling on Instagram, IMF Wrestling 666. We'll have the champion on here in your chair Friday night. Mr. Jundt, may I not know a lot about you, but I know of you. But allow me to introduce myself. I am the IMF World Heavyweight Champion, the leader of the House of Wolves, king of table matches, Omen Black. Now, you've been in some table matches in your own right, obviously, with Mr. Aruda. So, anything you might want to say to the champion, maybe from one champion to another?
Nothing but respect. I definitely sometimes I may not come off as such, but I'm a very humble guy. I absolutely love talking with anyone who's in the backyard scene at all. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. Definitely
Sure.
welcoming. So for someone such as yourself, to kind of
He's big, by the way, Omen Black. He's a big man. He's a big man.
Sure. Yeah, no, just to even acknowledge me is a little bit to give me some sort of introduction is very welcoming, and I appreciate it. And who knows, maybe sometime in the future, our paths could cross.
Well, he
fantastic.
did say is if you ever come to Iowa, he'd love to be in the ring. And you guys would be great opponents with each other. There are some opponents that we see at Omen Black, like I don't know, but you and him would certainly make some great partners in the ring. Speaking of their North Dakota snow, I remember watching a Buried Alive match in the snow, very creative and cold. Yeah, I mean, I could imagine. I mean, my first thought is like, okay, well, how are your bodies kind of? In fact, I even saw one of the shows. I think Ahito was just in no gloves and just a cut-off referee shirt. I mean, I guess you guys really are that strong. And I had a question earlier from Skulls, which I want to make sure I get to. And you guys wrestle on a trampoline. Now, it's not a big deal to me, but there are people out there that obviously wrestle in different circumstances. And I'm curious on what's that experience like and how do you adjust to that versus, let's say, like some other companies that have rings. ROEW has almost like literally, I mean, ROEW, I want to give them credit for a second. They have a ring that almost looks like I'm watching a ring that was on like Mid-South TV or AWA TV way back in the 80s. And, certainly everybody wrestles in different things. So what is that experience like for you and everybody else in the company on wrestling on a trampoline?
Well, before I get to that, I will just say that I know that to a point, trampoline wrestling's looked down upon. It's not like the what's a good way to, it's not like the best kind of experience to watch for someone. It's not always super entertaining because I mean sometimes it doesn't look like maybe a move could hurt or whatever.
No, I think it hurts. Trust me. I think everything hurts out there. I've seen you guys do F5s. I've seen you guys do leg drops, super kicks, claymores. They hurt.
Oh yeah, it might not hurt as hard as a ring or even on the ground, but it definitely has its own repercussions for sure. I mean, anytime we do it, it's a lot of work, and even at that, when you're on a trampoline, it's just and for anyone else who's ever wrestled on a trampoline, which is probably most yarders, it's a lot of work from just having it's all that weight on the trampoline and you have to move. It's kind of a little harder to run or even walk sometimes, much less picking someone up and doing the maneuver. So it could take a lot of breath out of you if you're not good on cardio or whatever. And there's a couple guys actually in our business who by the end of their match, and they could only have a 5-6 minute match on the trampoline, they are so out of breath just because from all the hard work that it is to do on a trampoline. Sure. Now, I will say this. I absolutely would love nothing more than to get a ring. And maybe sometime in the future, that's what could come to LBYW. And I would be all open for it. But I just want everyone to know that we're not always on the trampoline from October pretty much until like about April. We're on the ground. We're in the
Well,
snow.
playground. Listen,
We're on.
playground mayhem. You guys are
Yep.
out in a park, as
Hmm.
for example.
And we go in parking lots and skate parks and anything, even during the summers too. And it's, man, you get scuffed up a lot of bruises. Some people have been busted open. I will say, actually, as a matter of fact, on tonight's show, and it's not super highlighted, someone someone gets busted open.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I saw you. Listen, you had a little bit of blood, I think, in the was it the last match against Nate Dogg? I think where you had a little bit of blood, or was it the match with J Ro where you actually had a
Oh,
little bit of blood coming out there? So I mean, I
yep.
could certainly say that that reminds me of my days as a kid growing up in Brooklyn, New York. We would play football. Like
Hmm.
tackle football on cement because
Oh
in
yeah.
Brooklyn we didn't have what you guys have, these big backyards and these big all these like atmospheric looking hills. It was like, okay, if you're gonna play the rough kids, and you're gonna have to
Hmm.
go out there, and they're gonna tackle you, and they're gonna rip your pants. You're gonna come home. I never forget one day I'm playing. I got these brand new pair of sweatpants on, and I get them, and we didn't get those too often as a kid growing up, and I'm playing these kind of little older kids, maybe by 1 or 2 years old, and I get the ball, and all of a sudden I get tackled to the cement ground, and I still remember that cold ground in
Hmm.
Brooklyn, and all of a sudden my pants ripped, and it was like I had to go home, and it was like, oh boy, I didn't hear the last of that one. So I give you guys credit for wrestling on the ground here and such, but I do have some more comments. The anarchist says it's taking sorry for the delay, but he's moving to South Dakota, so hopefully he'll finally be closer. Also, here some more comments. Skull says a snowball fight match. Yeah, well, have you guys done a snowball fight match? I mean, have you done actually one of those?
Not like that, but I mean, there's been times in the snow where we'll pick up just a wad of snow. Sometimes there was one person who actually got a whole um, scoop of snow and it was full of ice, and someone got whammed pretty hard.
Well, I could imagine. And Omen Black, let me clarify a comment. I don't necessarily mean partners with you guys. I meant more as like a partner in the ring to have a match. So certainly, I just want to clarify. I think that's something I said a few minutes ago. More like a dance partner, meaning you guys would go out there in the ring and have a great match. That's kind of what I wanted to add there. So if the champ is listening, that was kind of more what we were talking about. In fact, I actually got that line. I was watching not too long ago the Bret Hart documentary on A&E, and he was talking
Okay.
about wrestling and talking about kind of the origins of wrestling. That's where I got the line from. So that's totally fine there. I have a question for you. Would you consider doing more matches on the ground?
Always, we're open to anything and everything.
Does that give you more flexibility, you think, as a company that you don't limit yourself? Because sometimes there's companies out there and they say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to do this. And that's all I'm going to do. But maybe because you guys are open to either wrestling at different places or maybe doing different things, is that flexibility kind of open you guys up to more things?
I think so. I think because another thing too that we do is whenever we travel, um, we'll like some of us will travel as a group. Maybe we'll go on like a trip or something. And during that trip, man, it doesn't matter where we're at. We will wrestle. And we'll just have some sort of wrestling going down, and it could be anywhere.
So I
So
have to ask that: how do you know to pick a spot to wrestle? Does it like do you just figure it out, or is it like flip of a coin? I mean, what's that like to pick a place to wrestle if you're not going to be at the same place each time?
pretty much, if like a lot of times, if you're just kind of out and about and you happen to pass by somewhere and you just give it a look and hey, that'd be a great place for blah blah sometime in the future, and then maybe that sometime in the future comes down and then it's today, and you're like, I know the place to do it, and you'll go down there and you'll just get it going.
Well, you know what? That sounds good. That sounds like why we like legendary backyard wrestling. And Skull says LBYW is like EAW, whereas what Skull started back in California, wrestling at a high school in the bike lot, which I do think is fascinating here. I think it's a fascinating point. But let me come back to Napalm. Napalm will wrestle on the ground, on a roof of a house, wherever. Just keep feeding me. Just keep feeding me. That's a Ryback line. I guess he's going to be maybe our Ryback here for a while. And and our friends over here at LBYW. But I mean, wrestling on the roof of a house, that might be. Do you sure you guys could pull that one off? Roof of a house, especially if you fall. I mean, I would have to say the roof of a house. That might be my limit. Is that a limit for you guys? Roof of a house?
Actually, I think it's very likely to happen in the future. I'm not even kidding.
Okay, well, you know what? Certainly. All right, fair enough here. And Omen Black here just said that he just wanted to clarify that. So that's totally fine here. No problem at all. We definitely, I'm sure that the champs one day, maybe they'll see each other in the ring. Who knows? But definitely follow these great companies. And Anarchist is a good one here. By the way, let me break it here. I actually have the Anarchist gunshot here coming on July the 2nd. That'll be around 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll have Mr. Anarchist on. I'll ask him his thoughts about maybe coming here and other places. So that'll be 4 p.m. in your chair. Right around this time, we'll be speaking with him. Oh, I remember when you guys went on vacation and you decided to have that thing for the 24/7 title. I thought that was really cool. Let's talk about the 24/7 title for a second, because the 24/7 title, you have kept this championship alive. For a while, it was the fun title in WWE, and everybody would have it. Even non-wrestlers would have it, non-celebrities. But you guys have kind of kept the fire burning here, that flame for the 24/7 title. So talk about the 24/7 title. And in fact, I've even seen pro wrestlers win the 24/7 title at LBYW. Talk about this for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio.
Yeah, so the 24/7 title for us is a fun and different way that we either can or don't have to fit it in with our main storytelling that we do throughout the last few years. What I mean by that is anybody who's not a signed LBOW roster member can go for the title. I mean, much like you've seen in WWE, they had legends go for titles. They had, just random people going for titles. And that's kind of what we do. Our main, members can win the title if they want. They want to go for it, they go for it. But if we have, like, for instance, I'm not even kidding you, I had a grandma of mine win the belt, and then my mom beat my grandma, and then my sister beat my mom, and it's just a fun thing. People who don't really wrestle can just go for it, and it's just a comedic thing. It's have a little bit of fun, take some of the seriousness away, and have some fun, and that's what we do it for, and we keep it going.
Absolutely. That's why I want everybody to follow Legendary Backyard Wrestling. If you're on YouTube out there, CJ Jundt, go up there and support his page. Also, ND_backyard_wrestling on Instagram. And I think that in a way, maybe that gives you guys more interest, because you guys try to give it to everybody to have a chance to be a part of LBYW. You think that's something by design, or what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's just that's kind of like what's a good word for that? I'm trying to think. It's just really just a big possibility. It's like, if you enjoyed doing that, and then maybe you want some sort of a future with us, we see what you got, we see what you can do, and we can work with it. And
okay.
Go forward.
All right. Well, I like that here. And Nicholas Crenson, of all people, certainly knows, because I am sure he's pinching himself to the fact that he's won his first title in 17 years, a major title. The wrestlers that put the work in to make a title mean something. Let me ask you this question, because this is a great segue in a way, because you started your career 13-0 at LBYW. You're almost on your way to being a Ryback, a Goldberg, the Ultimate Warrior. I mean, we were going to have to figure out, when is this guy going to lose? Then you kind of had almost like a roadblock last year, and now you're back as champion. So maybe talk about the experience of, you start your career off, again, like lightning in a bottle, a house of fire, and then you have a pitfall period where you win more than you lose, more than you win, but now you're back on top. So, I mean, talk about that experience, and maybe how, maybe in a way, it made you stronger to where you are right now, back on top.
Well, it's actually very funny how you mentioned Goldberg, because that's somewhat of a parallel that we were going for. Before I quickly get to that, I want to say this. When we first started doing Backyard Wrestling, it was called Backyard Wrestling, BYW. We didn't call it LBOW.
I heard you say that before, sure.
We had no idea just because we weren't really familiar with it, we were kind of in the dark. We had no idea that there was an entire community still going 110% in this. I thought it had died in the early 2000s, like some of the more hardcore, crazy backyard wrestling companies that were going back then did. But so when we started, we actually did legit wrestling to start it off. And what I mean by that is we didn't script nothing. We didn't plan out how the storytelling would go. We would legitimately get on the trampoline and full on mat wrestle on a trampoline until someone either won
Or
by giving up, tapping out, getting pinned, whatever. And might I add, no one tapped out. We had one guy almost pass out because he wouldn't tap out, and we had to stop the match because the ref was like, all right, can't take any more. But it was all real. And so when I started off, and I am no high school wrestler, I'm just putting it out there, but I started off, I think 3 or 4-0 at the time, just doing that real stuff. And then when we found out everyone was still doing everything, and we wanted to change up how we do it now, we were like, all right, we can take this idea and we can work with it. And so, like I said, it's funny you mentioned Goldberg, because I had this idea. Well, I already had one of the 4 belts. I was undefeated with like a 4-0 record or whatever. And I was like, I have a great idea. Let's do this. So it considered me going on a winning streak, which up to 13-0. I had every belt in our company.
Get 4 belts at the time, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And that was around the time Kenny Omega was doing his belt collection.
Yeah, he had like 7 belts, 8 belts. I remember it was a big deal when Christian beat him for the Impact title, which was like people were like stunned. So yeah, it's a good point.
Yep, exactly. And then that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to do something like that. I wanted to do. We had a guy who was injured at the time, Pinball Aiden, and he was actually set to come back. And I was like, well, I want to do the job for this kid because he could make it big. And so just before he came back, we had something last minute pop up, which is what ended up in me losing the first match, which I actually wasn't pinned in the first match, which still kept that legitimacy for my streak to kind of still be going in a sense.
Sure.
And I lost the world title. And then Pinball came back from injury. And then I was like, all right, he wanted to face me for my title rematch. And then he beat me. And that was really what set me into the spew of losses that I did. And he went on to win the world title around that time. And yeah, it was a good little payoff. I enjoyed it. And for the beginning of my short career as of the moment, that was probably the best part of my beginning career, was kind of doing that. I thought it worked great. And we used Goldberg, that whole storyline when he was undefeated, and then they had him lose. And we kind of worked with that to kind of somewhat parallel that into.
Well, I would say one difference though, before I get to more comments here, because a lot of people want to say hello to you. I would say though, Goldberg, at least in WCW, because I actually remember as a kid when he lost at Starrcade for the first time to Kevin Nash, I actually felt Goldberg was never the same in WCW after that. You have the titles. That's the one difference. You learn to deal with that adversity. Whereas Goldberg, it was just he stopped, he started, they tried to turn him heel, they brought him face, they didn't, he never had that same almost jump start. He never quite, I think, overcame that in terms of losing for the first time, whereas you were able to. I do have some more comments here. I want to give a big shout out to the Big Cheese Logan, the CWE UK champion of the world, who, by the way, you have to go to his Instagram page at Big Cheese Logan, because he just posted a photo with a guy you might have heard of named John Cena. And John Cena, obviously, yeah, you might have heard of him, right? John Cena, maybe you heard of this guy? Maybe. All right. Maybe. I just last saw him at Fast X the other day. So I just saw him last month on my big screen. But he says, fact of the day, I legitimately have had 2 backyard wrestling matches around 2000 and 2001. I have the tapes on a mini DVD, but need a camcorder to play them. So curious how I look on them. Yeah, I'm surprised anybody has anything taped, like from them doing anything from 2000, 2001. So I could only imagine. That'll probably be a conversation, I'm sure, with the Big Cheese that I will have next month on Sportswire Radio, because the Big Cheese is coming back, because I have candy to eat on me. I have UK candy that I have to eat on air, champ. So we have to do it in a couple of weeks. So I have to make sure the champion and I have an appearance. And we also have a big CWE show to promote, which the champion will be in action for. I have some more comments here.
Yeah.
I will certainly make sure to connect you with Mr. Omen Black. I'll definitely do that after we get off the air. I'll definitely send you his Facebook, and we'll go with that. I want to give a big shout out to another person from the UK, Mr. Michael Knowles. Michael is always a fixture at the Nonstop Action Wrestling shows. Also, our friends over at Wrestling Appreciation Society. It says, always lovely to tune into Sportswire. It's been a while since I came in. Well, it's also because you're getting used to the fact that I'm not live on Facebook. We have this temporary block, which I have no idea why. So thank you. And thank you to everybody that is with us on YouTube. Thank you to everybody that has supported me over the years. And also, I have here, I love that second place championship got replaced with the interstate title over LBYW. So talk about that. Obviously, you held that title, and talk about that transition. We went from the second place title to the interstate title. I also know recently we added tag team titles a couple of months ago as well.
Uh, yes, it's kind of funny. So, kind of like what I was saying earlier, when we first started, we didn't have an idea of how anything worked nowadays, and so.
But that's how it always goes with anything you start off for the first. Listen, I'm doing this 4.5 years. I started doing this on a Skype call, so nobody knows what can happen. So
right?
God.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta start somewhere. So
absolutely.
But yeah, so we just did it for fun, and I mean, we still do it for fun. I don't want to make it seem like it's a chore because it is not. But it's a more serious tone now than it was back when we started in 2020. And when we started, we had the world title, which is this one, not this design. It was just we had the spinner belt, but because in my mind, and I will say this, I'm in the minority when I say this, the spinner WWE Championship is the greatest WWE Championship design in history.
Ooh, I got guys like the Big Cheese in here who go way back to the days of when Hulk Hogan had the title back in the early 90s. I mean, I have people in here that, go back, and I'm going to leave that alone for now because it's your time, champ. But certainly you definitely have an interesting take there on that for some people. I respect your opinion, though.
Oh, I'm sure I'll get some shit for it. I always do every time I say. But anyways, so like I said, we kind of started off not so serious at the time, and so we had the world title, and I was like, all right, well, what can we do next? And we're like, haha, let's make a second place title. Stupid, funny, whatever. Okay, we did it. And then it just so happened to stick up until earlier this year, and I don't know why. I think it was just because I didn't want to change the name, because despite the name, that was at one point the second best title in the company to own, and it wasn't exactly looked upon as such, but from us here, it was treated as such. Like if you didn't have the world title, that was the title you kind of wanted to go for at the time. And then finally this year, it just came to us, and we're like, you know what? It's kind of a different era right now, and let's just change it. And so we retired that belt, and then we brought in the interstate title, and that one, it doesn't carry the lineage of the second place title. It's just a brand new belt, and the second place is just retired. So that's the new. I don't know if it'd be the secondary title. I think I'd probably give that to the U.S. title right now. That's probably the second best belt to have at the moment. But yeah, the interstate title's only got the one champ right now, and it's Showtime.
Well, certainly, listen, that does share something common with our friends over at Wrestling Championship Entertainment because they have an interstate champion, though it's an interstate open weight champion. It's open weight, so that's really the one difference here, though. But I do have some more comments. I want to get to people here. I still find the funniest thing that ever happened on LBYW is when CJ and Will broke the trampoline. That still makes me. I think that was in bloopers. Let's talk about that for a second. Was that in the bloopers show or backstage?
So actually, I think he's a little mixed up. It was actually me and Aruda who broke the ring, and Aruda and Will broke through a fence. So I think he might be just slightly.
Okay, so I have to ask a follow up with that. I mean, so when somebody goes through a fence, I would imagine, does somebody know that the fence is being broke? What happens? What happens there? I mean, there must be an aftermath, right? Because I have to imagine that somebody's going to say something. No.
Well, it happened. Well, so okay, so with the fence that got broke, it happened during a match, It happened during a match, and the two guys who happened to go through the match, one of whom was our referee for the match, and the other one was a guy who had no business being involved in the match whatsoever. But it happened, and shit happens, and we just kept going. Then, after the match was done, yeah, it was notified, and it was some shit. It was funny. Nothing crazy, like nothing. No one was in serious trouble or nothing, but it was just like, God damn it! And some people were upset, but we got it fixed up. We got it taken care of, and it was all good. No worries.
All right, well, I'm glad it got fixed and all
Yeah.
patched up here. And also, here some more comments. Michael Knowles says, "You're probably right. Used to being on Facebook." Yeah, unfortunately, Michael, if you don't know by now, I have a temporary block, which basically means on my laptop I'm not able to access Facebook. So going forward, you're going to have to watch our shows on YouTube. And I actually have a big show coming up for our UK fans and wrestlers. Friday night, I have, speaking of a guy who's going for a championship, Paul Mallon. Paul Mallon's going to be squaring off for the new British Wrestling Promotions World Championship there against Tommy Rocker at the end of the month. And we're going to hear from him live Friday night between 8 and 8:30 p.m. British Standard Time. We're going to hear from Paul Mallon, and Paul has got quite a story. Paul is also a fitness coach. He's been a longtime pro wrestler. He's the head coach over at Aspire Wrestling Alliance. He's also the founder of his own company, PB Fitness and Coaching. He helps people when it comes to fitness training and motivations, and he's a guy who's really helped a lot of people. You can follow that, first of all, at PB Fitness and Coaching on Instagram. You can also follow Aspire Wrestling Alliance. You can do that on Instagram as well. You can also check out Paul Mallon on Instagram at Paul Mallon1. We're going to see him again for our dear friends over at NBPW. Make sure you follow NBP Wrestling. That is New British Promotions Wrestling. They have a big show coming up here. It's going to be July the 28th and June the 30th. Big shows ahead. And Paul Mallon is going to be out there June the 30th against Tommy Rocker for their championship. We will hear from the champion contender live. Paul Mallon again. That'll be June 30th on Sportswire Radio that he'll be squaring off. And then he'll be here Friday night in this spot. Figure around 8:30 p.m. British Standard Time. Go to NBP Wrestling on Instagram to follow them. Also, New British Promotions Wrestling on Facebook. Check them out. YouTube. I want to thank the promoter and the owner of the company for setting this up again. Paul Mallon1 on Instagram. Follow him. Very excited to have him on Sportswire Radio to speak with him just days before his match for the NBPW title against Tommy Rocker, who took the title away from Martin Kirby, Johnny Storm, who was in the ring with. So some big UK legends. Very happy to speak with him here. So let's get some more comments because people want to speak with you. I love the spinner belt. My personal favorite title the WWE ever had was the Attitude Era Championship. I feel like it tops me. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Attitude Era, so I am fond of the Attitude Era. Yeah. That title, where Stone Cold famously held, among others. So, yeah, the Attitude Era is good. But listen, they're all great championships. You know what the beauty of wrestling is? Every person that loves wrestling grew up in a different era, a different genre, so it means something else to a different person, with a different take here. Also, Skull says here, Judge Joe Dredd was busted open on Monday after going through a ringside wall. Well, I can see, right? He was busted open by going through a ringside wall. That would make sense, no? Omen Black says, spinner belt is the best. Yep, respect just fell out the window, like Eric Clapton's kid. Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny. I actually... Speaking of that song, Tears in Heaven, I was actually listening to that on Sirius XM radio last week. So the irony. So I guess I told you, champ, that certainly once you spoke about the spinner belt being the best one, you were going to lose some people. And that's what you certainly did. Omen Black is a big man to lose. Yeah, I'm slightly mistaken. I got things mixed up about Aruda and him on the trampoline. No problem at all. Michael says, you're okay. Don't worry about it. I use YouTube a lot, and I mainly use Facebook for sports. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, if you're a fan of Sportswire for the wrestling stuff, I think you're going to stick with me because I think most people have. I think when I do an American sports show on Friday nights on Facebook, those people, unfortunately, you're going to go out the window. But the wrestling, I appreciate everybody that stuck with me. We have a lot of wrestling coverage ahead. IMF, Omen Black's going to be in the house Friday, I figure around 10 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to have, obviously, Nicholas Crenton, 11 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Paul Mallon, 8:30 British Standard Time, going for the NBPW title. So a lot of coverage. Had Levi McDaniels in the house also, I believe, Sunday night. So a lot ahead here. Like I said, I love the spinner belt. I love the undisputed belt. I love the Wind Eagle, but the Attitude Era Championship is always going to be my favorite. Yeah, listen, they're all great titles. I think, listen, all the belts, and I'm going to just say because I'm a homer here, I think all the titles are great. It's what you believe.
Yeah.
To me, in wrestling, there is no right or wrong. Everybody's got an opinion, but that's what makes our sport so great, and that's why we love all the great companies. And I want to give a big shout out to our friends over at Dark Cryptic Wrestling, DKW, because DKW is in a big war with IMF. We're going to be talking a lot about that Friday night because especially we saw that Mr. Big promo was cut there on Mr. Omen Black himself, and we're going to talk about that here with Darkron himself, and Darkron cut a big promo, and we're going to have DKW coverage coming on 2 weeks from tomorrow, getting them ready for their
Yeah.
big show July 1st. So a lot of talking, Winged Eagle all the way. I figured that here. So we'll talk about all that here in a little while more. But I mean, I want to talk about Chris Aruda for a second because Chris
Okay.
Aruda recently was inducted into the Backyard Wrestling Nexus Hall of Fame. This is going to tie into somebody else that just came onto Sportswire Radio a couple of weeks ago, and I'll explain why in a second. But Chris Aruda was an original of LBYW. He meant a lot, obviously, to the company. You had some wars with him. He's unfortunately no longer able to compete in the ring, but he was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame. And talk about what it means to LBYW to have Chris Aruda be inducted into the Backyard Wrestling Nexus Hall of Fame.
Well, it means a lot. Like I said, compared to a lot of these other companies that have been going on, as of now, they've been going for years. Most of them, as far as I know, at the littlest, have been going for at least 5-6 years, and tons have been going for a lot longer than that.
I think TBW is just about 7 years ago going on. So yeah, that's about right.
That's crazy. And in those years, they make their own legends and such, and it's very respected. And in LBYW, we're very new. We're only about 3 years. Actually, next month will be 3 years old. And so for someone who is no longer really able to wrestle a full-length match anymore, and Chris Aruda, for someone to be able to kind of get that, little bit of publicity and honor to become a Hall of Famer in the Nexus is very awesome. I mean, yeah, we've had our rivalries in the past. We've had our back and forths and such, but he did a lot for us in the little time that we have been a company, especially in the beginning. And he's been there since the very beginning, and he's had his fair share of accomplishments, and he's done a lot of our firsts that we've had, like our first ladder match, or our first tables match, our first battle royal, our first tag team match. He's been a part of all of that. And so it's only fitting that he's the first kind of, out of all of us, he's the first one to really go into a Hall of Fame. And that's something that I can say with the utmost respect. I'm happy for him. And that's great.
How does that make the company grow in a sense, knowing that there's somebody that you have on your roster that got into a Hall of Fame? I mean, it's got to help the company and open some further doors. I know Backyard Wrestling Nexus has done that for you guys, but just talk about that before I get to more comments.
It's just because like he gets recognized for his accomplishments, and once he got put through and he got inducted, and I'm not even kidding. I swear I'm not exaggerating. We got 6 new subscribers in just the last few days, a couple each day, and like that's a nice little grow there for the past 2 or 3 days since Heart of Glory has been out. And Aruda's been getting, he said he's been getting a few people talking to him about his stuff, and it's crazy. It really is. It's mind-boggling, and so it's a good thing for both of us, him for himself and for the company.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, anytime you're in something, I don't care if it's in the Mickey Mouse Hall of Fame. I don't care what it is. To say you're a Hall of Famer, doesn't matter what you do in life. It's going to open up doors and certainly give recognition to everybody involved. And congratulations to Chris Aruda and being inducted into the Backyard Wrestling Nexus Hall of Fame. Certainly, doors are always open here on Sportswire. We always want to talk to different people. And a lot of coverage. I'll have to try to tune in. I do my best to tune in, and you definitely do a great job, Michael. You've been one of my biggest supporters over the past couple of years, and I can't thank you enough for that. Everybody has a busy life, and I appreciate the fact that you and others follow us on Sportswire Radio, on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, YouTube here at Sportswire Radio, also sportnarium.com/player. And I thank everybody for all the past 4.5 years that has supported me and continue to give me a forum. So thank you for your support. Skulls will be at West Coast Wrestling Company in Helmet, California. I know the West Coast Wrestling Company because the reason that's important because one of my recent guests is a guy, Vito Fratelli, who wrestled the Major League Wrestling at the time world champion Alexander Hammerstone, and he has a victory over a guy, T.J. Perkins, you might have heard of. T.J. Perkins is a big, Vito Fratelli is almost like he's kind of like right there in terms of like he could probably get a call sometime to Orlando. He just wrestled in Mexico, won a title there. He's got like he's like the Kenny Omega of Mexico, basically. Let me put it that way. So it was a big honor to have him on. But want to give a big shout out to our friends at Dark Cryptic Wrestling. Please follow them on YouTube. Also, Darkron, Matthew Forsaken. Very honored to have had them on Sportswire, and I have a feeling those guys are coming back in your chair 2 weeks from tomorrow. You're right, Tom. Everyone came into wrestling at different times, so we all have it. That's my point. Listen, that's why as a wrestling fan, you got to appreciate what you have in front of you. And everybody that does, to me, wrestling is so different, unlike the other sports. Because wrestling, it's almost like you're in a band almost, or it's almost like you have a bond. It's different. Everybody from all around the world can be friends. People like other sports in different places, they may not connect. But wrestling is a different entity. It's a different ball game, and that's why we love it all here. HFW isn't new, and I'm definitely not new. HFW has been around for 10 years, and I've been around for 10 years. It's crazy when I think about that, and I'm sure we'll definitely talk about that here. We'll be thinking back to those experiences certainly on July the 2nd. I still find it crazy that I've been doing backyard wrestling for 10 years because I'm only 22. Well, I mean, I certainly can't imagine what it's like here at 12 years old. I'm not going to lie. This is my first time wrestling, and I'm honored that it's with LBYW. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Too much fun. So let me ask you a question. As we got another about 15 or 20 minutes with you, I want to make sure everybody safely can go and watch the show here coming up in a little while, so I want to be respectful of your time. But, I mean, you guys have been a part of the Backyard Wrestling Nexus, and in addition to that, you've given a lot of people opportunities for the first time. So I'm going to ask you a two-part question. First part is, what has it meant to you in terms of being with the Backyard Wrestling Nexus and growing the company? And conversely, within the company, giving wrestlers like J-Ro, giving wrestlers like Nate Dogg, giving wrestlers like a Napalm. Now, obviously, people know Anthony Arias. People know, obviously, an Anarchist Gunshot. They know Aruda. But some of these other wrestlers, you've given them that floor to be heard. So in a two-part question, how has it helped you guys to be a part of the Nexus? And on top of that, having these newer talents grow within LBYW? Talk about both those.
Well, first things first. So like I said, when we first started out, we didn't really think much of it, and it was just a whatever. But then when we really found out that everyone did it, how we found out is through the Nexus. I was just on Instagram, and I had just looked up a bunch of backyard wrestling stuff because I love wrestling. And,
I can see that. I can see that by your just your wall there. You've got pretty much all the belts I could think of, UFC, AEW even. So I can see that.
For sure, exactly. And I just found the Nexus, and I just kind of went through their stuff, and I liked what they had going on. You know, they're and so I found Anthony Arias, and I was just talking with him, and because he had started the Nexus not too long before we joined. I think it was around, I could be wrong, but around March 2021 is when he started the Nexus, and we joined about May. I could be a little off by there, about May 2021. And you know, they just they help everyone out as much as possible. And every company is different in their own way, and they support how everything goes. It's drama free, and it's worry free, so you don't have to worry about anything. You know, like if some people don't like the way you do it, no one cares too much. They still help you out, and that's what I love about it. And so they've helped us out a lot to get to where we are now. And where we are now, we allow people to kind of get in there and to start off their careers for the first time, much like Gyro and Napalm and Nate Dogg, just to name a few. Um, so that if they ever wanted to venture out, they have that experience through us, and we introduce them to the Nexus ways and how we do everything here, and it's just a great concept, and it's helped us grow. It helps them grow, and it's just it's awesome, man. I mean, I'm even repping the merch here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but just
I do.
support it.
No, listen, and I think that that's certainly why we really want to make sure that everybody supports and follows the Backyard Wrestling Nexus. You can actually do
Yeah.
that on Instagram at the.backyard.wrestling.nexus. Please
Mm-hmm.
make sure you follow them. Also on YouTube at Backyard Wrestling Nexus. Make sure that you go and support company at this night. And I think they'll have a much more longer term run than the actual Nexus had in WWE. Although they had some success, but they didn't quite have that kind of. Although technically, I guess technically Daniel Bryan was a member of the Nexus for what that's worth. So I mean, but the
Sure.
fact of the matter is, make sure you follow our friends over at the Backyard Wrestling Nexus for all the great things that they do. And I think that one of the reasons why it's important, I always go back to my own standings and how I've been able to do this for 4.5 years, because a lot of people, do podcasts or they do live streams, and they do a couple, and okay, they did it, people watch it, but then afterwards, you have to find a reason to succeed. And the reason that I've
Mm-hmm.
succeeded, similar to why I think this Nexus is so beneficial, is that it's about community. It's about getting people that are behind you, getting people working together, supporting everybody as a team effort. We all win when somebody else wins. And I think that's why we're going to see you guys for a long time here. My match against Kurt Adams was the very first match that got uploaded to the Nexus. I came into the Backyard Wrestling scene in 2013. Yes, you would definitely mention that. Thank you, Anarchist, for mentioning that. So I have to ask you then, as we get close to moving into closing thoughts and a few other things. So, what are your goals here for the rest of this year coming up? Obviously, I know retaining the title here is one of them, but what are some of your goals here in Backyard Wrestling?
Um, in Backyard Wrestling, it's just simply putting my heart and soul out for the fans. We just recently hit 1K on YouTube, which isn't, it's not a huge,
No, it's a big deal.
crazy amount,
IMF just
but
hit 1,000. I think a
yeah,
thousand is a
you're
big
right.
deal. It's a
It
big deal
is.
to hit a
Yeah,
thousand.
for small companies like that, it's a crazy deal, and everyone behind the scenes here in LWW is just, you know, it's awesome. It's like everyone's shocked, and it's like we worked so hard to get to 1,000, much like everyone else who's done that and exceeded that amount. And so that's just what we're doing. We're just doing this for us, and we're doing this for the fans, and even the Nexus, like just helping them. Sometimes they just need some content to put out. We'll send you a match, man, and put it out there so that the Nexus can keep going and supporting everyone else as well. And so that's pretty much the plans. Just in a vague sense, for the rest of this year for LWW specifically. For myself, it's just getting these people off my back, man.
Well, you listen. You certainly have a lot of people
Yeah.
that are sniping at you for that championship, and I gotta think, going back to when you were the champion back the first time, that this time you gotta know that you're gonna have to work harder to keep this championship, and you're gonna have to appreciate it more. No, because
Right.
you obviously went through those pitfalls last year after you lost the title, so you gotta know that the footsteps are coming for you.
Right. Yeah. It's that saying when people are like, "You have a target on your back." It's
The champions
not.
always do. I've had a lot
Yeah.
of champions on in my
Yep.
career on Sportswire. There isn't a champion that I've had on here that has had no target on their back. You ain't the champion for nothing.
Right. It's not an easy. Uh, it's something to not tread lightly on. It's a big deal. Even if it's just for like we have a group chat for everyone that's in LWW, and every once in a while, just for the fun of it, someone will say, "Watch your fucking back. I'm coming for you." Oh fuck! All right, and then because like I will say this, and I don't know how other companies do it, but the way that we film, I don't come up with anything. I mean, I have an idea every here and there, but I don't pick who's going to win. when they're going to win. Neither does the general manager or anyone else who's previously run the business. How we do it is we all commune and we talk and figure out just how the right storytelling goes. And then we get it done. We plan it from there. So none of us as one person um, plans everything for everyone. We all do it ourselves, and we work very hard to keep it going. And sometimes it's actually, and I'm not kidding you, it's sometimes very hard to plan because maybe someone doesn't agree with the other. And so that's when we all come in and we all just got to think about what's the right path.
That's interesting because there are companies out there that, again, everybody's different, that they may have their storylines kind of conceptually months in advance, whereas you guys, anything can happen. Maybe that adds to the originality and it adds to the creativity of the company here. Also, I want to make sure I mention Skulls. He's trying to build up his followers on YouTube. Give him a sub, Skulls the Soul Hunter. Make sure you support him. Omen Black and Darkron are certainly getting ready for their war coming up. Omen Black's going to be here with us Friday night to speak about that. So triple threat match, Prince, Omen Black, Darkron for that IMF title. Very excited for Rage in the Cage coming up here this week.
I will tune in.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the fact that you're going to tune in. I hope that we'll have more LBYW coverage. Speaking of the Backyard Wrestling Nexus Hall of Fame, on that same show that Mr. Aruda was announced, there was an individual who came on here you might have heard of. His name is Jack Delta. Jack Delta's obviously been in a lot of companies. He was in a company, and he's in part of a company that actually we had at the very beginning of the show tuning called ROEW Backyard Wrestling on Instagram and YouTube. And have you maybe thought about Mr. Delta as one of those names? I mean, Mr. Delta is obviously somebody that's a well-traveled man. He's wrestled everywhere. He's kind of like the Johnny Cash of backyard wrestling. He is also a Nexus Hall of Famer. And I have to almost ask you about Jack Delta and even Aruda being on the same Hall of Fame bill as Delta, and maybe Delta and LBYW sometime. That'd be, I think, a great opponent for you.
I mean, like I said, doors are always open. Anyone who wants to come up here and take the challenge, whether it be an easy challenge or a very intermediate challenge for them to come up here and deliver their best talent, we accept it. We want everyone to come up. And if Mr. Delta ever decides that he wants to come all the way up north or, west from where he's at, so be it. Come on over, man. I'd love to take down one of the greatest backyard wrestling wrestlers of all time.
I mean, here's a guy with 200 plus matches, 8 different states, probably more states as we speak. I mean, he's literally like the Johnny Cash. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere. He probably want to come to North Dakota. He pretty much he'd be one of those guys that says, there's some wrestlers that come on and say, yeah, I'm going to wrestle in this different place, and they ain't traveling. Delta's the one guy that he might actually want to travel to comes to North Dakota. So I have no doubt here. And also here for Darkron, we won't disappoint Alpha. No, definitely DKW does not disappoint. IMF doesn't disappoint. And the Alpha CJ Jundt definitely doesn't disappoint. I have to say a fun question here. I noticed the Our Lady Queen of Peace theme song that you come out to the ring with. And that was a entrance song that somebody used to come out to. I don't know if I should mention his name, but he was a big-time wrestler at one time, and he's kind of been scrubbed off for certainly maybe valid reasons, WWE TV, and talk about that entrance music you come out to.
So let me see. The very first time that I believe I came out to that. God, I hope I'm not wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was last year's Haunted Hellfest 2 event, which Haunted Hellfest, for those who don't know, that's our WrestleMania. That's our biggest show. The first year that we did it, 2021 Haunted Hellfest, we had about, and again, for us at the time, it was a little smaller. We had about 15 people in a crowd. We filmed our matches like as if it was an actual show that people went to. They came, they sat down, we started, went through one match, maybe a 2-minute intermission, went to the next, same, continue, continue. And then last year it was even bigger, and we decorate. It's a Halloween themed event. We decorate the whole place. Last year we had about 24, 25 people in the audience, so about 10 more than the year before. And it's the same thing, other than other times when we film, it's usually, we'll film it, and if we have to take a few minute break to discuss one
Sure.
movie or another, we'll do it. But for Haunted Hellfest, it's an actual event that people come to and they watch it, and it just goes and goes and goes, and there's really no pauses. Again, aside from maybe a quick transition to the next one, get everyone ready, and then you go. With that said, last year's Haunted Hellfest 2, if I'm not mistaken, that's when I came out to that song. And it will make sense of why that song was chosen in the near future. That's
Okay.
all I would say.
Okay. Well, you know what? I want people to figure that out. And again, ND_backyard_wrestling. And speaking of things that make people afraid, Michael Myers. I mean, I have to bring up Michael Myers for a second for fun. Talk to me about that.
um, yeah. So again, that was just kind of a last minute thing. It was the same situation last year, Haunted Hellfest 2. One of our other guys, another original that's been with us, Ragnarok, he had no storyline really going into Haunted Hellfest 2. And so we kind of came up with this concept to where, well, we could throw something in there, and then we could work with that storyline for a little bit towards the future. And so we had this deal where he would go to the ring, and then he would, a surprise opponent would come out. And, it was Halloween, so of course, why not? Or, sorry, it was technically the day before Halloween, so of course, why not bring out the man who literally kills on a movie of the same name? Michael Myers comes walking out, breaks his freaking neck, pins him in like 18 seconds, and then everyone's shocked and stunned, including Ragnarok. And then, it just kind of, a storyline grew out of that. Ragnarok had a broken neck. He wore a neck brace for the last 6-7 months. And Michael Myers would occasionally come in and stalk him. And then, sure enough, they fought again at the last pay-per-view.
That reminds me of a couple of things. The Kane Pete Rose WrestleManias. Then for a while, Paul Bearer, I think, when he was sort of aligned with Edge, I think at the time, was it? Yeah, I think it was with Edge and the whole Edge and Kane thing back in the sort of, I guess, the end of the Ruthless Aggression era. So yeah, those are some interesting points here. Michael Knowles says, backyard wrestling. I might want to travel. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll turn up from England. Hey, you never know. England to North Dakota. Listen, you get new people out there, and that's what we want to do. Bring people together. Skulls is talking about taking autographs. I think Skulls. Let's get the YouTube followers first before we charge people for autographs. We love you on Sportswire, but let's get those followers here first, and obviously we'll see. And I definitely see from your Instagram page that you're a huge horror fan. So I could definitely see, and a little bit of pain and misery because unfortunately you're a Cowboys fan. So the Cowboys, unfortunately, they haven't had that much success in the postseason, but maybe they'll get it right this year. I won't ask you too much on that, but before I get to closing thoughts here, I wanted to ask you one of my two last questions, which is the first one is, what do you want to say to any of your future opponents coming up in the ring?
I welcome all the challenges in the world, and I mean that quite literally, especially Sir Michael Knowles. If he ever wants to come up from England, bring it. I welcome any and all competitors, and I would absolutely love and have the honor to work with anyone that decides that they want to take some dedication and travel to a very not very well known state. So
yeah, it is one of the lesser known states in the United States. I believe it's the 4th least popular state, but I would say if you're a sports fan, there's actually a pretty big name that's actually a part of North Dakota, Roger Maris. I'm sure people have heard of Roger Maris. For American fans, he had held for a long time, and some people had felt for a long time, and still to this day, up until Aaron Judge recently of the New York Yankees, had held the major league record for home runs in a single season and was a 2-time MVP. So Roger Maris is from North Dakota, and Josh Duhamel is from North Dakota. And people know Josh Duhamel. I'm sure you get that one a lot. So there are some there are some notable people from North Dakota. Let's certainly not slag on the state. As I always say on Sportswire, we never want to slag anybody from where they're from because
Right.
I'm from New York, right? Everybody wants to knock New York, right? So
yeah.
what am I to say? So at the end of the day, there's a lot of beautiful things about North Dakota. It's a wonderful place to fish, by the way. It's a wonderful place for the outdoors. A lot of outdoor games here. A lot of people from North Dakota that do a lot of great things. This is a company that's one of those things here. And he also wants to mention send Kyle Kennedy when he's cleared to wrestle. Well, Kyle Kennedy is a guy we call Mr. Sportswire for our UK fans, and he's injured. He got injured in a match here a couple of months ago, and he's out for at least 9 to 12 months. May have to retire. So he's saying that he wants him to come up here and wrestle. But the Anarchist Gunshot says, I'm from Indiana. Yeah, but Indiana, people know Indiana because they know Indiana for basketball. They know from high school basketball, college basketball. They know Hoosiers. North Dakota is a state that you have to think about for a lot of people when it comes to notable personalities in North Dakota. So that's why, like, I wanted to at least give North Dakota that kind of rub, that kind of respect in terms of like what North Dakota has to offer. Because again, you think about North Dakota geographically, you know, it's near Canada, it's near Minnesota, but you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, may not know, you know, who's from North Dakota. Also, another big name if you're a sports fan, Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson is considered to be like the greatest coach in sports history, and he's from North Dakota. So there's a lot of great people here from North Dakota. I want to make sure that those people get also a mention. Also, Carson Wentz.
Well, yes. Unfortunately, he went to the Eagles, but yes. That's a conversation for a whole nother time.
We going to say something else, God?
Actually, I don't know if many people know this, but Wiz Khalifa was born in Minot, North Dakota.
You know, I did not necessarily know that. I didn't know that he was from North Dakota. I mean, I didn't. Okay,
and then Ronda Rousey also went to school in North Dakota too.
Well, Ronda Rousey, I heard her, but I don't know if I associated her necessarily with North Dakota because she moved away, and so she was. I was thinking of the people that were like born and bred North Dakota. Phil Jackson. I mean, I knew Roger Maris was from North Dakota because I'm a sports fan. You know, Phil Jackson, I knew. You know, Josh Duhamel, I knew a little bit, and also I actually tried out years ago for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So there's a lot of these things that come up like second nature. So I want to give a shout out to somebody also tuned in from the UK. Also, he was our Big Daddy Battle Memorial winner from Firestar Pro Wrestling, Mr. BMD, who's coming at the end of the show because Legendary Backyard Wrestling has a show coming up here in a few minutes to premiere, and I want to let people go out there and watch it. Evening Gents, Evening BMD. BMD is going to come back onto Sportswire later in the month of July. Unfortunately, these next 2 weeks I'm booked, BMD, but the following week we could definitely do something here. And Anarchist says we have the greatest football team of all time now over here in Indiana, the Indianapolis Colts. You really want us? Listen, and I'm going to be objective as I can. The Indianapolis Colts, I wouldn't necessarily say are the greatest NFL team of all time. They've had success, but I wouldn't necessarily say that here. But Napalm wants Kyle Kennedy to face CJ Napalm. We'll have to see. Kyle Kennedy, different topic for a different time here. Now, maybe if I trained and became a wrestler, I would take that challenge. Until then, not. Yeah. So Michael Knowles is not trained to be a wrestler, but you know what? What do you want? Last question though. What do you want to say to anybody that's hearing about you guys for the first time? Why we should check out Legendary Backyard Wrestling? You as well in the ring, and to those that have continued to support you guys over the past nearly 3 years, what do you want to say to those two groups?
To anyone who hasn't seen any of our content, but is open-minded, I say you should check us out because we're not held to any standards. We're still a young company. We still have a lot of people that don't really know the business too well and that are just starting off themselves. And we're not held to high standards here. So you'll see almost just about literally anything. And I mean that, literally anything. So you could be very well surprised almost every other month when you watch our content, and I really mean that. For the people who have supported us the last 3 years, just me coming from me myself, I couldn't be so much more thankful. It's an honor to do this, to have fun, and just be able to do this for one reason, but to be able to do it for another reason, while having fans who literally watch your stuff and enjoy what you're doing, it's just awesome. It's something that I've always thought about even before this, and the fact that there are even just a few of those out there, it's just a very overwhelming thing, and in a good way. It's
don't cry on us. You're the champion. Listen, don't
right.
don't break down on us. But obviously we want everybody to
So,
follow you guys on YouTube, and over 1,000 subscribers. Congratulations. Instagram was certainly building up that following, and a couple of more comments here before I get to closing thoughts. Too many CJs in this vicinity because CJ Black is a part of ROBW Backyard Wrestling. He's the good guy. You're the alpha. So in a way, the alpha and the good guy, it's almost like maybe like two forces collide almost in a way. So maybe one day CJ square off. Who knows? I'm not going to pick who'd be the better man. I'll certainly let the audience and certainly you guys figure that out in the ring. But obviously CJ Black has been on here on Sportswire in the past. I am sure he'll be back on very soon. He'll talk a lot about what he's doing in ROEW. You'll be on here soon to talk about what you're going to do in Legendary Backyard Wrestling, and two great companies, two great wrestlers. Very excited about that. Anarchist.
I hope to share a match with this guy sometime.
Yes, he's great wrestler, by the way. He's a great wrestler. He might actually be a good guy, but I actually think he's an even better guy in the ring. So I actually think that he's even better in the ring. So this guy, CJ Black, you want to watch him, his company, ROEW Backyard Wrestling. So make sure you support him. And CJ says you mirror Jason Storm, the company's champion, in a way. He might have to mess you up, but we'll figure that out down the road here. But I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Obviously, we're coming up to showtime here, and I want everybody to go out there and watch the show. I'm going to watch it later tonight when I'm done with a couple different things, so I'm looking forward to tuning in. I hope we can have more coverage of the company. Anything we can do to promote you guys, anybody you want us to talk with, happy to do that here as well. So I want to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, say, and I'm very honored to have had you. Hopefully the first of many things here from LBYW, and fire away and be my guest.
Well, if you don't know me now, you will know me after this and after the next few shows. I am CJ the Alpha Jundt, your Legendary Backyard Wrestling World Champion. And you don't want to miss tonight's show, LBW 39, as I will be ringside with my new enforcer, Napalm, making his debut tonight. Very first match of the night against an LBYW original Ragnarok. And in the main event of tonight, you will see who will face me on our new series that we're starting, LBW Throwdown, coming this Friday as well. So keep your eyes open and stay tuned in.
All right, well, you're adding a whole lot of content for us here to follow, and I want to make sure everybody follows one more time at ND_backyard_wrestling on Instagram. CJ_Jundt99 on Instagram. Also, give him a friend request on Facebook. It's Charles CJ Jundt Senior. He's already a senior, a young man. Young man's a senior already. So certainly, that's a pretty cool feat. Congratulations to you on that. Also,
thank you.
CJ Jundt on YouTube as well for the Legendary Backyard Wrestling content, where you can watch Legendary Backyard Wrestling backstage shows, throwdown shows. They have pretty much 24/7 loads of content. I cannot wait to watch the show here later tonight. Omen Black, would love to have you in IMF. I will definitely send you his personal info when we're off the air, and I look forward to that. And Champ, I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. Congratulations on all the success you've had personally in the ring, along with the rest of Legendary Backyard Wrestling. I look forward to watching the show here later today. I look forward to watching more content from you guys in the future, having you on with the rest of the roster. And thank you for the opportunity, and looking forward to the show one more time. And definitely, you've shown why you're an alpha, and I hope to talk with you very soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, man.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, that was here our guest, the Legendary Backyard Wrestling Champion of the World, CJ the Alpha Jundt, who has recently successfully defended his championship at Playground Mayhem against Nate Dogg. He'll be ringside at today's LBYW 39 show with his newest accomplice, that is Napalm. You can follow, again, Legendary Backyard Wrestling at ND_backyard_wrestling. Also, CJ_Jundt99, both on Instagram. CJ Jundt on YouTube for LBYW shows My name again is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I'll be back here in this chair tomorrow night, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 p.m. Central Standard Time, with the WC brand new RCW Underground Champion of the World, Nicholas Crenton, the new Messiah himself. He will be here to talk about his championship, first one in nearly 17 years. Friday again, 8 to 8:30 p.m. British Standard Time. Paul Mallins from NBPW ahead of his match against Tommy Rocker for the NPBW title. Also, Omen Black and more from IMF, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, all on Sportswire Radio's channels. Thank you, everybody, here for tuning in. Go to CJ Jundt's YouTube page. Go and watch the next LBYW 39 show here on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you, everybody.